What is up, everybody? This is Alex from HGTV. I'm talking about Nolan's film, The Odyssey. So I don't live in London, so I don't have access to the one true IMAX screen in the country. And the whole film is shot entirely on IMAX, so that's unfortunate. That's kind of annoying. There are like 4 IMAX cinemas in the entirety of Europe, so that's kind of a bummer. But I was quite excited for this movie for a few different nerdy reasons. I thought Oppenheimer was awesome and kind of a return to form as far as Nolan taking something that you wouldn't necessarily think would be this huge, broad, billion-dollar movie about subject matter like this. And the Odyssey is always kind of known as like, oh yes, I studied classics. I studied the Odyssey and the Iliad. But ever since I was a young kid, I've been utterly fascinated with ancient Greece, and they're kind of seminal, crucial stories that can be intuited through a lot of media that we consume without even thinking about it. If you've never formally studied it, you kind of know them through just how much of a impactful, ever-present adventure that is core to it. And honestly, my current feeling after a first watch is that I'm kind of mixed overall. I think there is some 10 out of 10 sequences in it. The Odyssey's kind of episodic in its structure, so some of the episodes in there are like, oh my god, this is quite incredible. And I don't even know about warning for spoilers for this. It's like, yeah, Jesus dies in the Bible. Surprise, surprise, the Cyclops is in the Odyssey. The sirens are in the Odyssey. I don't really know what to say. Of course, there's some modernization going on here. And yeah, I didn't like it because there's a trans person and there are black people in it. You got me. I shouldn't even bring that up because it's so ridiculous and just not an issue with the movie. Because to me, I was not going into this looking for a 100% faithful adaptation of the Odyssey necessarily. I was coming into it looking at, this is definitely a Nolan's adaptation of the Odyssey and what it's going for through his lens. What's with the Eiffel Tower? This is funny. So seeing as I mentioned the whole casting, like, debacle, controversy, I kind of did actually have some casting issues with this movie, and not that kind of culture war nonsense. It was more just like everyone in Hollywood is in this movie, a little bit like an Oppenheimer. And yeah, it was kind of distracting to see like Travis Scott in the movie. I didn't want to be thinking about Astro World while I'm trying to watch the Odyssey, but I guess a better way to illustrate it is that there are some actors in this movie that just completely disappear into their roles, and others that kind of feel like, yeah, that's Charlize Theron. Like, John Leguizamo, he disappears into it. He's a really cool central character that gives it a lot of gravitas. This character did catch me off guard with how cool he was. Another character that just completely disappears into the character is James Remar, who I'm not seeing anyone talk about. And I won't say who he is in the movie, but that sequence was extremely cool. I loved the execution of that character. That's kind of how you do it. Anne Hathaway was great. Matt Damon was surprisingly good. And it is his movie. It's his arc. And that tweak to the story was one I thought was handled really well, and gives it a really nice through line as a narrative, using the whole Trojan horse battle as this recurring motif throughout the movie to explore these ideas of grief and guilt, and the ongoing consequence of that from a character perspective I thought was really effective, and what makes the movie work overall. I need to say I thought the beginning of the movie was kind of straight up bad. It takes a while to get moving. It was maybe the first 20-30 minutes I was getting kind of scared. I was concerned that, oh god, I hope the whole thing isn't like this. It just felt like, what is the hook here? This is really clunky, how it was presenting its exposition, and especially the way it was edited together. These A/B cameras for this dialogue stuff just felt very plain and rushed in comparison to when it does get into the scale and awe and wonder, which seems to be the real focus of the movie. And I'm not the first to say it, but it is once it gets to the Cyclops. Oh, is that who played him? I recognized his face. Okay, that's cool. But it was one of the things that was curious about this movie to me, because it's unlike anything Nolan has done before, obviously. And the fantastical adventure elements of the Odyssey are one of the things that always drew me to it and that I love about it. But there is something that inherently clashes with his kind of hyper-real style that he likes to go for and doing as much practically as possible. But as far as a Nolan-esque interpretation, this was a great horror scene, something new from him. It was violent and scary. I don't know if it was just my screening, but, and this is not a new critique for him, the audio mixing was insane, and not necessarily in a good way. There were multiple people who were covering their ears for certain scenes, which I don't know if that's the intended effect. It didn't seem like they were like scared of what was happening. It was just more that the volume was so ridiculously loud that people were tuning out until it relaxed. And I've seen other films on that same screen, and it didn't have that issue, so I don't know what the issue is there, but let me know in the comments if the audio hit you that way as well. And I really wish I could have been able to see this with subtitles, because I'm just wondering at this point if it's a me thing where I just find it quite difficult to hear some of the dialogue sometimes, and I just wish I could not have to commit any brain capacity to trying to figure out what people are saying sometimes, especially when it's loud and there's blasting music and it's chaotic and there's action and people are running and there are a lot of different names to keep up with. I'm looking forward to seeing this again with that option in mind. That might help me follow it. Not that I am confused by it in any way. In fact, part of what was fun about watching it was like, oh, we're going here now. What's Nolan's take on this scene going to be? Like this one, for example, which I thought was okay, not one of the standouts. There are some standout sequences, like the Cyclops is the first time it really picks up, and everyone is praising Samantha Morton in this movie for good damn reason. It's maybe the best sequence in the film. Another scary, intense sequence that is put together beautifully. The mixture of practical effects, the editing of it is prime stuff. It's amazing. I thought the siren scene was extremely cool as well. It was nice that it was able to be violent and bloody and not have to shy away from some of the scarier stuff, or like in The Dark Knight or something, for example, where there's violence, but they've got to cut around it, they've got to awkwardly edit around it to get it as broad as possible. There is still a little bit of a gap in my heart, as one of the things I love about the Greek god pantheon is that they're such assholes, and seeing them visualized in some way is really what I'd love to see. And obviously this is the Nolan interpretation, so it's got to be more grounded and serious, so it's not like you're ever actually seeing Poseidon or Zeus. And there's a cool reveal with a certain character that all feeds into this central arc that I've thought was effective. And even as much as I enjoyed the Cyclops scene, there is still part of me that kind of would love to see a version of this with this level of production, where it is this dialogue opining conversational aspect, almost like the Gollum scene from The Hobbit. Might seem like a weird comparison, but in the Odyssey, Polyphemus has like a lot of dialogue, and it's part of how Odysseus distracts him. But this interpretation is much more kind of horror focused and atmosphere focused, and the execution of it is very good. I thought the production design was immense. The score from Ludwig Göransson was good as usual. He's always bringing it. Didn't always love the mixing, but this is Christopher Nolan we're talking about. The film is too long. I don't think it needed to be as long as it is. There are some sequences that could almost be removed and it wouldn't really feel like it would hurt the film that much or would change that much, especially with it not having an intermission at all. And yeah, it's just some of the Nolanisms that bug me. The expected non-linear timeline stuff does take a while to pay off. So I'm curious how that rolls off the tongue on a rewatch, because it didn't hit the same way as Oppenheimer for me, where I really felt the kind of existential horror and dread of that film, and it did work on an emotional level, where there are parts of this where I was like, what are we doing here? But does broadly wind up paying off towards the end in some of the big crowd pleaser moments that start paying off, and it's like, okay, you want me back round. I'm not really sure if I'd consider it like masterpiece status. I just had too many issues with some of the choices. But I do need to appreciate the fact that Nolan's managed to get so many people hyped on the Odyssey. That's extremely cool. There's a load of stuff to appreciate about the movie. I don't know, I need to sit with this a little bit more. Maybe see it again. I'm just kind of off-put by how bloody long it is, but there's certainly a lot to love. Every time Matt Damon twangs the bow, I thought was a really cool recurring motif. That was a huge payoff towards the end. I mean, the imagery of the Trojan horse buried in the sand is impactful. I loved how dense these crowd scenes were, but I just got to appreciate on a certain level that Nolan is one of the few directors remaining who is able to keep people interested in this big, epic adventure cinema and has a real love and dedication to the craft, even if some of the choices don't really gel with me. It's maybe not my ideal translation of the Odyssey in a cinematic form, and I know there have been a million different translations of this in cinema over the years, including the original SpongeBob movie, believe it or not. Maybe this is a better translation. I'm gonna hold off giving it an official score right now. I'm thinking somewhere around a 3.5 star, maybe low 4, depending on how it flows on a rewatch, but I'll leave it here for now. Let me know your thoughts on the movie, and I'm sure we'll talk about this film again soon, if not on this channel, then on Sardonicast for sure. So, see you next time. Bye.